Let's speak with Michael Simmons, economics editor of The Spectator. I do apologise to you as well, Michael. No guest should have to sit through that prior to coming on. You're probably feeling slightly bilious as we speak.
Yeah, well, I've watched that clip and similar clips probably a bit too many times now, and it just gets more depressing each time you watch it.
Yeah, and you can't unsee it, obviously, but it's only when you sort of hear it a second, you think, I mean, I know politicians have a PhD in not answering questions, but I mean, that was an absolute masterclass at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's bizarre is, you know, she won't be clear on this. Yeah, every day that you read the papers now, someone from the Treasury has leaked the latest kite that they're going to fly.
Right, we're going to try, Michael, we're going to try and get you back on a better line because that one is obviously gone Wonksville Central, as the technical phrase goes. If you knew that, teach your kids. Let's just do some comment while we're trying to get Michael back on. Gary says, I served 10 years in the British Army and would not go and fight for the country as long as Starmer is Prime Minister. What a disgrace of a man, Ian says. Gary, lots of similar comments to that. Does he have our backs, I think, is the overarching point there. We've got Michael back with us. Sorry, the old gremlins got into the mix there, Michael. I can't remember where you were when you were cut off in your prime, but we were looking, I suppose, at the overarching competence of our Chancellor.
Yeah, well, I was just saying, we've got this bizarre sort of uncertainty that she's created now, where she won't answer these questions clearly because she doesn't want to declare that she's going to have to break this manifesto pledge until the budget. But on the other hand, every time you read a newspaper, there's a new kite that's been flown by the Treasury, or maybe it's 2p on income tax here, maybe it's a threshold move there. And the result is just this massive amount of uncertainty that's scaring markets, it's scaring voters, and it means that no one's making financial decisions.
Yeah. And on top of all of this, as I just read out there at the beginning, Michael, I mean, as if that's not bad enough, that we're in a very sort of a sort of suspended state of, I don't want to use the word anticipation because that sort of smacks of excitement is to come, and I don't think there is any of that, but we're in this place where, you know, you think, okay, any economy can go through a bit of a bumpy road, and we understand that. Most of us know that, you know, the world, the sort of capitalist way that Western economies operate means that there's going to be bumps once in a while, so we all understand that as well. But then when you realise we're paying 1.3 million quid over the course of our lifetime to Rachel Reeves and predecessors and those that subsequently take the job, it does stick in the back of the throat somewhat.
Yeah, and look, I think ultimately this Chancellor, this budget, is just putting off the inevitable. Now, the public might say that they want, you know, the rich to pay more tax, but when they realise that actually the rich is soon going to have to include most of them, then people won't want to keep paying more tax.
Yeah.
And the fundamental problem is we just spend far too much. Even if she does massive tax hikes, we'd still be spending more than we bring in. And eventually a government, a Chancellor, is going to have to confront that fact, because you cannot just keep raising taxes to get your way out of this problem. This is where the doom loop phrase comes from, because the increased taxes will reduce growth, which means next time she's got another hole to fill, and it just keeps going on. Well, at some point it has to stop.
Yeah, and another story that kind of links to all of this, because, you know, Chancellors always look for, you know, is there another way? Is there a little avenue? And that little secret file that I think we've talked about before that sits in the Treasury, whether it's about pasties or caravans and places Chancellors dared not go, but sometimes they have to. But of course, there's now a whole new opening for Chancellors, and that's things like carbon taxes, because you can do this with a bit of impunity on the basis that actually, you know, this is a moral crusade as well as a financial one, and that's what tends to happen here.
Well, yeah, if she did that, that would be the most short-sighted, disastrous thing. I mean, if you go back to the roots of our economic problems, it's because we don't have any growth. And the reason we don't have any growth is because we don't have productivity growth. And you go one step further, well, why are our industries not growing? Why is business output not growing? And a large part of that is because of how staggeringly expensive our energy and our electricity costs are. And part of the reason they're so expensive is because of green levies, green taxes, etc. So, it's all well and good saying you want to save the planet, but if you destroy the economy, in the process, then what's the point of any of it? So doing an increased carbon tax would be so insane. I don't even think Rachel Reeves would go there.
Yeah. Do you think her credibility, though, is shot after the landlord licence scandal of last week? It's rather interesting that on the very week that the Renters' Rights Bill became the Renters' Rights Act, and I was, curiously, last Wednesday hosting a debate with landlords at Old Billingsgate at the Landlord Investment Show the day before this news broke, and we were talking about, the whole thrust of the debate in this area, Michael, was really about rules and regulations, the amount of regs, and are landlords across the new way things work? And I know things can differ postcode to postcode. And then 24 hours later, our own Chancellor gets collared for not having the correct paperwork in place, which is applicable to the borough of Southwark, where she's renting. It might not be applicable in other boroughs, but it was to hers. Now, that in itself might, to some people, just be, well, it's very, with a plethora of regulations in this, what used to be a very simple area of renting out a house, it's very easy to forget something. But this story gets murkier almost, in the sense that we seem to have first heard one excuse and then another one and then another one, and it's now quite apparent that there were lots of people saying, no, you need a licence and you better get it done now. Does this dent the credibility of a Chancellor to the point that that accusation of incompetence goes to the next level?
Well, I think unusually, I'm sympathetic to the Chancellor here, because it does seem fairly clear that the letting agent had said, oh, we're handling this, and then didn't handle it. On the other hand, in a way, it's a taste of their own medicine.
Yeah.
I mean, this, as you say, is just yet another piece of red tape, a secret way for a council to get a tax. So it's Reeves experiencing how annoying this bureaucracy is. But I think wider than the story, she is in a kind of safe position because of how we saw the markets react in the summer when she got upset in the Commons. I mean, I think had Keir Starmer wanted to use this to get rid of her, then he probably could have. But I think she's basically in the clear because it's a minor case. But hopefully she learns, how difficult for everyone else these regulations are. And
what I can never get my head around, Michael, and I say this with the Angela Rayner thing, you'd think that when you work in government at a senior level, as Rayner did, as Rachel Reeves clearly does, that there would somehow be, a department somewhere, there'd be a bloke called the Run This Past Me department, that anything you were doing in life, whether you were buying, some finance deal because you were getting a new car, a house, anything connected, you just hand over the whole lot and go, right, run through this, have I ticked every box? Because it's not as if we haven't seen this play out 1,000 times before in different ways and different scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. I'm completely against government wastage and silly spending. However, sometimes we take that too far. I mean, think back to when Boris Johnson was dying of COVID and there's not like a private Downing Street doctor. I mean, clearly there should be things like a private doctor in Downing Street. And clearly there should be some sort of special advisor or a civil servant whose job is to handle the life admin things of these parts. Like, the Chancellor should be focusing on trying to sort the economy out, not dealing with the house that she doesn't currently live in. So I wouldn't decry the government if they spent a small amount of money on having someone whose job it was to sort all these things out.
Or rather annoyingly, there probably is somebody who's already got a job that you could say, well, Bob over there's been in the civil service for 100 years. He's never done a day's work in his life, so maybe he can do it. So
exactly.
there's somebody there already on the paybook, I think. Michael, thank you as ever. Michael Simmons, he's the economics editor at The Spectator. I actually share his initial view on the landlord licence thing. Now, not every landlord in every borough was required to have a licence. So it differs what some councils have it, some don't have it. There's now going to be a new landlord portal as part of the new Renters' Rights Act, which is kind of it's a database to register your landlordness, and if you don't, then you can be fined. And the fines are, they're pretty darn brutal. I mean, you could walk into a pub and, you know, punch half a dozen people in the face and wouldn't get fined the same amount of money as you would get fined for not registering on the new landlord portal. It's not. The Act is being given royal assent, but it's not in action just yet. And so up until now, some boroughs have a licence system and some don't. And it's also relatively new-ish, even in the ones that do. So it's never been... And also, you're renting out a bloody house, for God's sake. You know, it's a house. You've got an agreement, you've got an estate agent. There's loads of landlords that have fallen foul of that one. But she is the Chancellor. And I'm sorry, you are held to a greater level of accountability if you have a very senior role in government. I don't think that's too much to ask, is it?